Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So obviously the playoffs are underway, so I thought it'd be a fun idea to look at the 16 teams in the NHL right now and kind of go through how long I think that their winning window is right now. Some of these teams like Montreal are just entering their potential window, while other teams are maybe getting up there in age. So we're going to go through it. It's kind of like a tier list, but I'm just going to go team by team, and I'm not going to have like the full tier list, giant website up. It's going to be 1 to 3 years, 4 to 5 years, 6 to 8 years. And then a full decade, you're going to be in the playoffs battling it out. So yeah, let's look at this because I think that we might have some fluctuation. There's a lot of exciting young teams coming up that are eventually going to need playoff spots in the next 2 to 3 years. So let's start it off first with the Minnesota Wild. Now, when looking at them, if you told me this after last offseason coming into this season, I would probably say a decade after they got Boyum in the draft. Wallstead was developing great. Urov was the best player on the KHL winning team, as well as Ogren was a very promising prospect. Brock Faber was coming off that great rookie year. But I think right now I'd go with 6 to 8 years instead. I think it's kind of just, as long as Kirill Kaprizov's a top 10 player in the NHL, this team's going to be competing at a high level this year, despite him only playing 45 games. They ended up not safely making the playoffs. Actually, it came down to the last couple weeks, but still, they didn't have their superstar guy, as well as Joel Eriksson Ek missing a decent amount of time. Next year, I think they're going to really enter their contending window because they have that $12 million coming off the books. But Brock Faber hasn't really taken a step, and if anything, has taken a step back this season. Danil Urov has not been as productive in the KHL. Wallstead's been struggling a decent amount in the AHL. So I'm not quite as high as their prospect pool compared to at the start of this season. But still, should be a highly competitive team, and next year really enter a potential championship level of play. The Montreal Canadiens, I think this one's pretty obvious. It's a decade. You look at guys like Ivan Demidov, Lane Hudson. Demidov's 19 years old. Lane Hudson's still 20 or 21 years old. Cole Caulfield's 24. Suzuki's 25. Slavkovsky's 21. They are definitely set for the next decade to compete at a high level. David Reinbacher, Jacob Fowler, as well as Montembeault, only being 28 years old, have fully solidified themselves as a playoff contender, made the playoffs this year. Next year, I don't expect them to be contending at a high level, but I think they should make the playoffs yet again next year. And then the year after that, probably enter that tier of being one of the best teams in the Atlantic Division, in the Eastern Conference, and really start going forward in terms of mortgaging the future. For now, yeah, if Ivan Demidov is what we think he's going to be, and we already know that Lane Hudson is probably worst case scenario going to be a consistent 70-point defenseman, those guys are going to be in their prime for the next decade. So that's the easiest one that we're going to go through today. Next up, the Dallas Stars. Again, similar to Minnesota, a year ago, I would have had them in a full decade. I think I'm going to go to 6 to 8 years now, considering they were so aggressive at this year in the deadline, especially with the Mikko Rantanen trade. I like that trade for them, but they gave up a much younger guy in Logan Stankoven, as well as 2 first-round picks. Their prospect pool is pretty barren at this point. Bichelle has made his NHL debut and has been playing some big minutes for them. Still, Wyatt Johnston's only 21 years old. Robertson, Heiskanen, and Ottinger are only 25, 26 years old. So they're going to be a high-level team, and Rantanen's only 28 years old. But I think that they no longer have this full decade. Once those core 4 guys, the 2017 guys in Rantanen, hit their 30s, still going to be a very good team, but I think 6 to 7 years is probably looking at it more so for the Dallas Stars, and considering they don't have the first-round pick the next 3 seasons, Jim Nill has been able to find steals outside of the first round, but no longer compared to when he had that crop of Stankoven, Johnston, Bichelle coming up. Still a very bright future, but no longer. They're really going for it for the next 5 to 6 years. Next up, the Florida Panthers. I think this one's pretty obvious. 4 to 5 years. Basically, their entire core. Matthew Tkachuk is the youngest in the core, and he's 27 years old. Then the oldest is Aaron Ekblad at 30, 31 years old. That's their core. They're going to be contending at a very high level for the next 3 to 4 years, and then probably by that 5th year, we're going to see some kind of fall off from them. They don't really have that good of a prospect pool. Sam Miskevich was their one top guy, and he is pretty young in NHL, proven at this point. But besides that, there's not a ton. There's not a ton. Jack Devine could be something out of Denver, but they already traded a bunch of first-round picks as well. So there's nothing really coming within the pipeline a ton to kind of save this team, and especially after the Seth Jones trade, they're really in it to win it for the next 3 to 4 years. So I think that their overall contention, 4 to 5 years, makes perfect sense for them. The Winnipeg Jets, I'm going to go with 1 to 3 years. Me and Babiak got into a decent beef on this in the podcast. I could see you maybe saying 4 to 5 years. Their core is similarly to Florida, 28 to 32. When looking at guys like Morrissey, Scheifele, Hellebuck, Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers as well, Neil Pionk. Sandberg is 26 years old, but still, this team, I think is going to be a very high level team for the next 2 seasons after this, but I could start seeing they're all going to regress at a certain point in time in their prospect pool. Although it's better than like a Florida Panthers, I'm not fully sold that Lambert, Jaeger, Samuelson are going to be guaranteed studs at the NHL level quite yet. They do have Cole Perfetti, but not enough proven young guys similar to some other teams, or unlike some other teams that we're going to go over relatively soon, like Dallas Stars and like Carolina Hurricanes that we're going to talk about soon. But yeah, they don't have a ton in terms of young roster players at this point and not NHL proven prospects. Next up, the Edmonton Oilers. I'll go 4 to 5 years. As long as they have Draisaitl and McDavid, they're going to be in the mix. But even those guys are now 28 and 29 years old. So even 5 years from now, 33 and 34, I'd expect them to still be top 5, probably top 10 players in the NHL. But when looking at around them, Ekholm's like 35, Hyman's 33, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is in his early 30s. Like, the rest of the team is not young. They don't have shit in terms of young guys. So again, those guys will still be elite. Evan Bouchard, if you could turn around, rough first game, although he had 3 assists. Evan Bouchard will be still only, 30 years old in 5 years. But still, they're going to have some heavy retooling around their kind of older core right now, because right now it's not looking too good in terms of the future. The Colorado Avalanche, before this year's deadline, I would have said 6 to 8 years. But after what they did, the aggressive moves that they made, I'm going to go 4 to 5 years when looking at Brock Nelson, trading that first-round pick, and more importantly, Callum Ritchie, a guy that you thought maybe you could insert in your lineup next season and be pretty decent. The Charlie Coyle trade, they gave up a second-round pick. Will Zellers, who's been very good at the USHL level, and even Casey Middlestad, although he wasn't playing that good this season, was still only like 25, 26 years old. So when looking at them, they have really pushed their chips in the middle. McKinnon is now 29 years old. McCarr's still only 26. But yeah, their core is not young by any stretch. Natrushkin's like 30 years old. Lekkonen's 29. So yeah, they're really all in the next 3 to 4 years. Instead of before that, you thought maybe they have some solid prospects. They can go for 6 to 8 years because I think like Draisaitl and McDavid, McKinnon's going to be elite till the very end. But yeah, it's definitely a little bit concerning after what they did. But it might result in a Stanley Cup the next 2 to 3 years, so who cares? Next up, the Ottawa Senators. I'm going to go with 6 to 8 years, considering the fact that they don't really have much in the pipeline remaining. Yes, Sanderson and Stützle are only 22 years old. Brady Tkachuk's 25 years old. No, Stützle's actually 23. But Batherson's 26. Like, their core right now is between the ages of 22 to 26. But again, what do they have outside of Yakimchuk in terms of prospect pool? Merriline could maybe be their franchise goalie going forward. But considering the fact that they traded their 7th overall pick in 2022, traded their 2023 pick that was 12th overall, and the Chychrun trade, they don't have much in the system. If they selected Zane Parekh, maybe I would go a full decade. But I feel like once Sanderson and Stützle hit their early 30s, again, unless they have some absolute steals later on or can somehow offer sheet guys, they're not going to have a ton of young guys within their 20s once their stars start to get old at this point. Next up, the LA Kings. They might be the most interesting team on this list because they have a bunch of old guys. They have some guys in their late 20s. They have some guys in their early 20s. I'm going to go with 4 to 5 years. There's just too much uncertainty of what's going to happen once Kopitar and Doughty start to regress. I know Kempe looks fantastic. Fiala's been great, 35-goal season, still only 29 years old. Quinton Byfield's only 23 years old, but there's just too much uncertainty. Brant Clark hasn't really proved enough at the NHL level to know that he's going to be that Drew Doughty replacement. So I think they're going to be a playoff team for the next 4 to 5 years, but could potentially be a decade if Byfield and Clark continue to progress. They got Liam Greentree in terms of a prospect. Lafreniere has been very good this season, but just a little bit too much uncertainty. Next up, the New Jersey Devils. This time last year or 2 years ago, I'd definitely say a decade. I'm going to go with 6 to 8 years, considering the fact guys like Simone Nemec has not really progressed, has not got the opportunity to. Dawson Mercer has not rebounded to his 2023 form when he had like 27 goals and 29 assists and was great that season. Still got Jack Hughes, who's only 23 years old. Still have Heischer's 26 years old. Bratt's 27. Like, they're going to be good for at least the next 5 years, probably 6 to 8 years. I also like Luke Hughes a lot, but some of their prospects did not exactly work out to the level that we expected, so it's no longer the decade that we maybe expected. For Carolina, though, I'm going to go with a decade, honestly, when looking at this team. Seth Jarvis is still very young. He looks well on his way to being already an elite NHLer, but a legit star in the NHL. Svechnikov's still only 25 years old. Aho's 28. Slavin's getting up there at 30 years old, but they have Nikishin in the system, arguably the best defenseman prospect in the NHL, as well as young guys like Jackson Blake. Bradley Nadeau at the AHL level scored like 33 goals in his draft year, +2. Nikita Artemanov in the 2024 draft was an absolute steal. They have the 2 first-round picks from Dallas. They've been one of the best drafting and developing teams in the NHL the last couple of years, and I see no reason why that would change with a forward thinker like Eric Tulsky and Rod Brindamore as their coach. So yeah, I expect them to be a high-level team for basically the next decade. The Washington Capitals, this is another one like the LA Kings where they have some old guys, they have some mid to late 20 guys, and they have a good prospect pool. I think I'm going to go with 6 to 8 years. I just haven't quite seen enough from their prospects. Ryan Leonard, Cole Hudson, Ilya Protas. By the way, Cole Hudson will be on the podcast on Friday. Ilya Protas, Parasak Crystal. If they debut next season and are great, you move that up to a decade, but you just haven't really seen enough from that. But they have McMichael. They have Alexei Protas at the NHL level. Those guys are still only 24 years old. Sandin, Chikrin's still somehow only 26 years old. Schroem's 28. So although Ovechkin, Carlson might be out of the NHL in 3 to 4 years, they still have a very good foundation where I think that they can be a playoff team for the next 6 to 8 years and a legit threat over the next decade. If Cole Hudson turns into his brother, Ryan Leonard turns into the 35 and 35 guy that we expected he could be. They've been running it so well, but it's just not enough NHL proven, truly young guys, 24 years old, but none of their prospect pool has really hit the NHL yet. So I can't quite go a full decade. The Toronto Maple Leafs are up next. For them, I'm going to go with 4 to 5 years, closer to 5 years when looking at their core. It's obviously Austin Matthews to William Nylander, 27 to 29 years old. Those guys are going to be very good players into their mid-30s, but I think they will probably start. Actually, no. I might go with 6 to 8 years. Matthew Nyes, but they don't have much of a prospect pool. 4 to 5 years, 6 to 8 years, 4 to 5 years. How about 5.5 years? That's what we're going to make an exception for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Matthew Nyes has definitely helped their future. Joseph Woll isn't that young. He's like 27 years old at this point, but still decently young. So yeah, I think 4 to 5 years of like high level contention. I think that they could definitely still be a playoff team in that 6th, that 7th year. But again, those core pieces would start to get in their mid-30s, or maybe they most likely will start falling off to a degree. The Vegas Golden Knights are up next. They'll find a way, but right now it's definitely 1 to 3 years. When you look at the age of their core, guys like Pietrangelo, Carlson, Stone, all in their early 30s. Theodore and Eichel are like 2 of their younger players at 28 years old. But knowing them, they're going to land some 25-year-old hot shot in 2 to 3 years. And then just like with Eichel, just restart kind of the contention window, move out some guys. Devil magic going on in Vegas. We all know that. But if they keep the current core, barring massive changes, some superstar wanting to go to Vegas, they should start regressing in 2 to 3 years. Similar thought process to the Winnipeg Jets. On this one, the Tampa Bay Lightning, 1 to 3 years. Similarly, their core is starting to get up there in age. Their number 1 and number 2 defenseman is 34 and 35 years old, and they have nothing in the pipeline to replace that right now. Kucherov's 31 and 32 years old. Braden Point is like one of the younger guys in this team and is 29 years old as a 2014 draftee. Hagel's their like youngest guy at 26 years old. Vasilevsky's 30 or 31 years old. They're starting to get up there in age. They're going to be a contender for the next year or two after this for sure. But by that 3rd year, I think we could see teams in the Atlantic Division. If Buffalo finally figures something out, if the Yzer plan finally works out, they'll probably replace Tampa Bay by that 2028 season. I think that's a fair assessment. I don't know what to do with St. Louis because I honestly think next year they're just going to miss the playoffs if we're going to be honest. But I'll go with, I don't think that they're ever really going to be contenders. I'll go with 4 to 5 years though. As long as Robert Thomas is kind of in this prime, this team is going to be decently competitive. He's 26 years old. Kairu's around the same age. They have a solid prospect pool. Dylan Holloway is still pretty young. But yeah, I still am not firmly sold on this team in terms of eventually turning into a contender. Could be a perennial wild card team, maybe get a divisional spot a year or two. But not too sold, but they shouldn't really be going anywhere in the next couple of years. Doug Armstrong has done a very good job with this retool. Not sure it's going to reach the heights that fans are maybe expecting, though. But I was wrong about the team this year. So maybe I'll be wrong about the team in the future. But let me know in the comments. That is all 16, I believe. I hope I didn't miss a team. Let me know in the comments if I did. I'm pretty sure I did not. But I shall be seeing you in the next one. Peace.